Okay, welcome everybody. It's good to see everyone. Uh, Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everyone. My name is Becky Malay from the Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement. I'm the former global co-chair of the Global Call to Action Against Poverty, and currently I'm sitting in the Global Steering Committee, the Coalition for the UN We Need, or C4UN. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Asia Futures Forum, where we aim to discuss in 2 hours an overall assessment of the state of implementation of the Pact for the Future and the UNAT. We will be featuring discussions on the different chapters of the Pact, and we aim to tease out important issues and developments in the current global and Asia contexts. The Asia Futures Forum is a collaborative initiative led by the APSD, or the Asia Civil Society Partnership for Sustainable Development, and the SDGs, led by Anselmo here, the Asia Development Alliance, represented here by Zia, and the Global Call to Action Against Poverty, in partnership with the Coalition for the UN We Need, or C4UN. C4UN is probably not very familiar to everyone here in Asia, so I'd like to introduce C4UN. It is a global platform of civil society organizations that are committed to creating a stronger and more effective and more accountable UN system. It was established in 2017, and we bring together more than 7,000 individuals and organizations from all regions of the world and sectors to strengthen civil society engagement in UN reform and the global governance renewal. Our vision is really to transform the UN system by promoting inclusive, people-centered multilateralism and partnership with civil society, governments, and the UN. We actually want to provide an open forum for civil society, the UN, and the member states to promote the renewal, innovation, and strengthening of the UN system, which is in danger right now in a world of rising authoritarianism. So we want to mobilize collective advocacy when multilateral institutions such as the UN are under attack, and promote awareness of the importance of global governance in all forms. So we are having the regional futures forum all over, and this is the first one, and it's going to be here in Asia tonight. No? The forum aims to discuss the challenges and opportunities emerging from the 2024 UN Summit of the Future and its follow-up processes. The Asia Futures Forum was launched in November 2023. We started this in November 2023 with the primary objective of facilitating meaningful civil society participation in the 2024 UN Summit of the Future, which was held in Kenya. And we had the civil society meeting in Kenya in 2024 as well. In 2026, we are organizing a series of online and in-person meetings, beginning with tonight, the first meeting in Bangkok at the margins of the UNAPFSD, followed by additional online meetings in March until May. The outcomes of our discussions will be consolidated and presented as a collective statement to the Global Futures Forum, which will be held in July in New York in time for the high-level political forum. So welcome, everyone. I'm very happy to see everyone gathered tonight. We'll start now our agenda for tonight. Okay. Okay. For the first part of our discussions, we're going to have our what they call this, our agenda for tonight will be started with a video message from the Executive Office of the Secretary General. We have a video from Themba Kalua. He is the director of the Pact for the Future implementation from the EOSG. So let's hear him speak and see him speak.
Distinguished colleagues,
Is the audio working?
Yes, it is.
Partners. My name is Themba Kalua. I am the director responsible for Pact for the Future implementation in the Executive Office of the UN Secretary General. It is an honor to address the Asia Futures Forum. I extend my sincere appreciation to the Asia Civil Society Partnership for Sustainable Development, the Asia Development Alliance, the Global Code to Action Against Poverty, and the Coalition for the UN We Need for convening this vital space for dialogue, reflection, and collaboration. Nearly a year and a half after its adoption, the Pact for the Future is moving from commitment to implementation. It stands as one of the most ambitious global agreements in recent years, designed to reinvigorate multilateralism, accelerate progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, and respond to rapidly evolving challenges such as digital governance and artificial intelligence. Implementation is advancing across the UN system. The Secretary General's Steering Committee, which he chairs, and the thematic working groups are driving progress on the Pact's 56 actions. This includes efforts to reform the international financial architecture, as well as the launch of the Independent Scientific Panel on AI and the Global Dialogue on AI Governance. Importantly, implementation is not confined to headquarters in New York. Across all regions, UN resident coordinators, regional commissions, and research institutions are translating Pact's principles into country-level action and partnerships that connect the global ambition with local realities. In Asia and the Pacific, resident coordinators, ESCAP, regional organizations are helping adapt the Pact's commitment to specific opportunities and challenges in this diverse and dynamic region. Yet we must acknowledge the significant headwinds we face. Politically, the multilateral system is under strain. Geopolitical tensions and declining trust make it difficult for collective action, precisely when cooperation is more urgently needed. Financially, many countries across Asia and the Pacific are confronting shrinking fiscal space and rising debt burden. This limits their ability to invest in resilience, social protection, climate adaptation, and inclusive growth. Institutionally, we must continue strengthening coherence across the UN system and ensure that global governance structures remain fit for purpose in a rapidly changing world. The Pact for the Future directly addresses these pressures, but meaningful implementation at scale will require sustained political will, adequate financing, and inclusive governance. This is where civil society plays a decisive role. The Asia Futures Forum offers a unique platform for peer learning and collective problem solving. Civil society engagement ensures that regional perspectives shape global implementation and that global commitments reflect the lived realities of communities across Asia and the Pacific. Allow me to highlight 3 strategies. First, sustained engagement and monitoring. Civil society organizations are essential in tracking progress, identifying gaps, and ensuring transparency. Your independent analysis and field experience help anchor Pact implementation in reality and hold institutions accountable. Second, strengthening regional and cross-regional collaboration. While Asia and the Pacific is diverse, it faces shared challenges from climate vulnerability to digital inequality. Platforms such as Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development and this forum can amplify civil society voices and feed regional insights into global processes. Third, co-creation of solutions. The Pact calls for inclusive governance. Civil society brings innovation, community knowledge, and accountability, mechanisms that are indispensable for designing policies that work, whether in digital governance, climate resilience, financing for development, or youth empowerment. The Pact for the Future is not merely a negotiated text. It is a platform for action and accountability. Its success depends on partnership across governments, the UN system, and of course, civil society. As we look ahead to the Global Futures Forum, the 2028 review of the Pact for the Future, and the broader reform efforts, including the UN80, your engagement will be crucial to ensure that global commitments translate into tangible improvements in people's lives. Thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and your steadfast commitment to shaping a more just, inclusive, and sustainable future. To those of you who are in Bangkok, I look forward to seeing you later in the week when I attend part of the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. Thank you, and wishing you fruitful deliberations.
Okay, thank you very much. We can clap our hands. Uh, Next, we have a message from the co-chair of the Coalition for the UN We Need, Nudara Yusuf.
Hello, everyone.
Is the audio working?
Yeah, audio is working.
I hope this finds you well. I'm sorry that I'm not able to join you live today. I'm currently on the East Coast, which, as you can see, is quite snowy. But I'm delighted that you're able to join us for this really important discussion of the Asia Regional Futures Forum as part of the initiative Coalition for the UN We Need and all of our regional partners, which I am deeply thankful for pulling this forum together. Just to give you a quick briefing on the objectives of this forum and what we hope to achieve, there are 4 key objectives to the Regional Futures Forum series that we plan to do from now up until April. We'll be doing regional futures forums in various other regions of the world, with the Asia Forum kicking us off today. We hope to, firstly, understand kind of where the priorities are in the region in terms of the future of the United Nations and Pact for the Future follow-up. We'd like to make sure that we share updates with you on the Pact for the Future, where things stand, where the politics of UNAT, Secretary General elections, and many other processes in New York are currently. We want to make sure that we identify priorities for how we should be reviewing the Pact for the Future, especially leading up to the 2026 high-level review, where we hope to start developing a people's framework of recommendations for the 2026 high-level review of the Pact. And finally, we want to get your perspectives on the future of the United Nations, whether that be in the context of the UN80 initiative, the Secretary General elections, the post-2030 agenda, but whatever it is that you feel really needs to be the future focus of the UN. Because the broad idea that we want to achieve with these regional futures forums is to answer the question, what is the future of the United Nations? We've been engaging in a lot of reform over the last couple of years without, I think, truly asking and answering that question so that we have a clear vision for where all of this reform is leading and is taking us. And we would like for you to help us to answer that question. Importantly, your feedback and your consultative data and thoughts are going to be fed directly into the Global Futures Forum, which is set to take place in July in a hybrid format in New York. We will hope to get all of you engaged again at that point in time. We'll be soliciting feedback and interventions from our regional partners at this forum in order to present at high levels in New York, in order to make sure that the 38th floor hears what the regions are saying, and civil society from the regions are saying, but also to inform kind of the potential next Secretary General of what civil society's perspectives are as well, that also being a key focus of what we hope to do. And I'd like to finally emphasize to you the keen importance of civil society at this time. None of us are unaware, and I don't need to reiterate to civil society, that we are living in a world that is jarring, that, you know, we've seen and heard the word unprecedented times so many times. But right now, while we're having these conversations, wars wage on, humanitarian crises persist, the climate is changing rapidly. And I think that in a world where political will is confused, where the international order as we've known it is changing, civil society has a strong role to play as the glue of the system, as the piece of the system that stays consistent in its efforts, that continues going, that calls for change, that partners with people willing to solicit and inform and shape change. And I think that intergenerationally and across sectors, intersectionally, civil society becomes an extremely powerful tool right now for good. And so this Asia Futures Forum is one of many, but a seriously important effort in showcasing the voice that civil society has. But I hope that you go beyond just sharing your voice. I hope you share with us research, ideas, innovations. I hope that you stay engaged in the politics of the time. And I hope that you encourage your networks to do so as well, because now more than ever, we need a really strong, coherent, and loud voice from civil society that is strategic in the face of change. I wish you all a very, very fruitful Regional Futures Forum, and I thank you for your time and effort in engaging with Coalition for the UN We Need.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was a very substantive intervention from the chair, co-chair of the C4UN Nudara. We'd like to proceed now to Anselmo Lee from the Asia Civil Society platform on sustainable development. Anselmo, you have the floor. I don't think I need to introduce Anselmo to everybody. Everybody knows him.
I hope so.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Anselmo Lee. I'm here as a regional coordinator of Asia Civil Society Partnership for Sustainable Development. At the same time, I'm the global co-convener of Global Summit Watch, together with Aoi Horiuchi, who is here in the online, one of the partner organizations. So let me welcome you with my opening remarks. I prepared some substantive input to help us to in the where we are, global context, So it's a 2026. A lot of things are happening, as already mentioned by the previous speakers, but I want to put them again in terms of our action, civil society action, in the context of Summit of the Future and also UN 50. So next speaker, the Jebelson, will give a lot of details about the monitoring, the result of monitoring of these two initiatives. But my presentation, opening remarks, is more broader context. So I skip this one, already well explained by Becky Malay, the Asia Futures Forum. And as you know, these are the five major pillars of Pact for the Future. And this is an overall one. So we are going to have a series of the webinar to get more in details of the five pillars. As we see, put in the more historical perspective, start with the 2015, and then there was a UN 75 5 years later, and the UN Secretary General famous agenda, our common agenda, and then SDG Summit, and the Summit of the Future, and Pact for the Future. So this is a series of the events, because many of us have engaged some, if not all, of this global event. And now it's more closely. So now we are 2026, before UN 75 initiative, Summit of the Future, UN 80. And then we are foreseeing some of the global events. So the SDG Summit, and also review conference of the Summit of the Future, and also some of the nuclear related issues, non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, 2028, and then finally 2030. But I put in the middle the US politics, whether you like or not. US politics affect whole world, especially the Trump, the one and Trump two. In fact, today he made the longest speech, the State of Union speech today, the Trump president, and which also a lot of implication for civil society engagement. And also, I think it's important to be reminded that, we are in the geopolitically rapidly changing landscape, As you know, the war in Ukraine started February 2000. Yesterday was the fourth anniversary of the war in Ukraine. And also war in Gaza still is very unclear, where we are now. And also Asia, which has been very peaceful for some time, suddenly, the last year, there is a regional conflict here and there. India, Pakistan, and Cambodia, Thailand, very surprisingly. And also last week, there was again Pakistan and Afghanistan, and also continuing the tension, if not conflict yet, between the China, Japan, and of course, Korean Peninsula, threat from North Korea. So this kind of the geopolitical conflict is a very important context where we are discussing Summit of the Future and UN18. I think it's important to make a connection between global discourse and negotiation and what's happening in the region in Asia. And also, as we every day, we are really aware of this impact of artificial intelligence, AI, every day. ChatGPT 4 years ago, but now all kinds of AI, even we cannot remember, the name of the new AI tools, So I think this is also another opportunity and also more challenges, as we all know, So now I'd like to summarize briefly. There are many issues like SDG, digital governance, Security Council reform, and human rights, global South representation. These are the summary of the where we are, in terms of Asian government. This is the Asia Futures Forum. And some issues are relatively easy to be agreed, among Asian countries, but some issues are highly political, very political sensitive, especially security reform, So depending on issues, we can develop different strategies, We have, for instance, India, Japan, they are very strongly for reform driver because they want to sit in the Security Council. And then China, of course, very cautious. Republic of Korea is like playing the bridge role, and ASEAN and stably oriented coalition. Of course, many others, Indonesia, many other countries, but these are some of the key actors in Asia. So we need to develop country-specific the strategy to address or Summit of the Future and UN 18. And then this is a little bit more detailed, these 5 key actors, what type of engagement they are doing now, and also geopolitical framing, As I said, China and India, they are members of the BRICS, and Japan, G7, and China, Japan, India, South Korea, the G20, So there are different of the configuration of global or regional powers in this changing political context. I think we need to be aware of all their different approaches and positions to have a more impact in the advocacy work. So the rest you can look with your own eyes. There's a digital compact security council, so there are a little bit more details. Oops. Is that all? Sorry. Sorry. There's something wrong. And I will share in the chat box. There's one more slide about the challenges to civil society and engagements. I try to share some of my thoughts, what can we do, all these challenges. The key point is, as we are involved in different types of global initiative. Here is a more UN initiative, but at the same time, there also another platform, Global Summit Watch, where we are engaging traditionally G7 and G20 and BRICS and UN separately, but we are trying to promote more facilitation and dialogue among civil society engagement platform so that we are in the same page in terms of the global agenda, especially those working in UN, like C4UN, and also other geopolitical summit, which are outside the UN, because they are lacking accountability, legitimacy, but in real world, they are really influencing the UN agenda, but we have a better access to UN, but less to those BRICS and others. That's why it's important for us to work together. That's why we here, the Global Summit Watch and others are part of this process. So I hope this input can be useful for our analysis and also strategic planning. So thank you once again for your listening.
Thank you very much, Anselmo. I think you have started a very important platform so we can actually interlocute with you because multilateralism, as we all know, is the main issue of the day. Where are we going to take our issues to? Thank you. We have Jebelson next from the Coalition for the UN We Need. Jebelson is in charge of monitoring what has been happening in the Pact for the Future. Jebelson, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. Hi, everyone. Nice to see many of you here, and really glad that you could come immediately after the Asia Pacific Forum. Really appreciate that. My name is Jebelson. I work as a research analyst with C4UN. I will be presenting on, I'll be giving an update on the implementation of the Pact. So first, I'll give a brief background on the Pact, and then I'll give some monitoring tools that are available and few next steps. So, as Anselmo mentioned, Pact for the Future began as far back as 2021, and the negotiations spanned over 1.5 years from February 2023 to September 2024. And the pact was adopted, and it has 5 chapters and 2 annexes containing 56 actions and 363 sub-actions. It's commonly called one of the most wide-ranging agreement in many years. As I mentioned, there are 5 chapters in the pact. I'll not go into the details here. Many of you already know this. So it deals with the post-2030 development agenda, lethal autonomous weapons, weapon systems that use artificial intelligence, connecting all people to the internet, youth engagement, and reform of the international financial architecture. So these are some of the main issues that are addressed in the pact. If any of you want a detailed discussion on the pact, there's a link at the bottom of the slide where we have a detailed discussion on the pact. We'll share the slides with you after the session, so you'll have all the links for your use. Now, the second and main part of my presentation is on the Pact implementation. There are 363 sub-actions in the Pact and implementation of 291. Almost 80% of the Pact sub-actions are the responsibility of member states at national capitals. And 44 sub-actions are the responsibility of the SG and the UN system, and 14 are for international financial institutions, and 14 are other stakeholders. As mentioned by Anudara, the pact will be reviewed in the 83rd session of the GA, which is happening in 2028, not 2026, it's 2028. So this was one of the key provisions that was advocated by many civil society and also member states. So it is important that we work towards this review, and all of our efforts now are geared towards implementation, but also the review, which is a key accountability mechanism. So to facilitate that review, as Themba was mentioning in his video message, the UN and also civil society has come up with many monitoring tools. And I'll present here 4 monitoring tools that are available for your use. This is more to help you inform your engagement and advocacy on Pact implementation. So these tools are publicly available. So I hope that many of you use it. The first tool that I'm going to discuss is the UN Progress Dashboard. So this is the official tool of the UN. It tracks 41 action items where the UN is the lead in implementation. Out of the 363, this dashboard has 41 action items. So as we see here, 52% of the milestones are completed. So here's an example of the kind of information that's available in the progress dashboard. So the Pact requests the SG to establish a high-level expert group to develop implementations on beyond GDP. So from the dashboard, we can see that on 7th May, the high-level expert group was established. On 30 November 2025, the draft recommendations were published. And in August 2026, this year, we can expect the final report. This kind of information is important for civil society to stay updated on the process, and more importantly, to engage in those processes, particularly with gross domestic, with the beyond GDP metrics. This is going to influence the policy discourse both at the global and national levels. So it is important for civil society to engage in these processes, and this information will help you do that. The next dashboard monitoring tool is the GDC implementation map. So this one is produced by UNCTAD. So this one specifically is on the GDC, and the latest we have is as of July 2025. Although it's last year, past 8 months, the information is still useful. So I've picked an example here which talks about developing metrics on universal, meaningful, and affordable connectivity. So in column 3, here we can see what the UN has done in this regard. So it is important for civil society to be aware of these and to engage in these developments. And the next one I'll be discussing is the GGIN Pact Monitoring Toolkit. So this is produced by Global Governance Innovation Network. It covers 24 key actions in the Pact. So this is more quantitative monitoring tool. It draws data from a lot of the official indicators, etc. And the tools can be accessed through these links. So I've picked one example here just to give you an idea of what information you can find there. So this action item is to strengthen efforts to prevent, anticipate, and mitigate impact of humanitarian emergencies. So GGIN they're tracking this with the number of countries that have multi-hazard early warning systems. So each sub-action of the Pact has similar log frame in the GGN Pact Monitoring Toolkit. So it will be useful for many of your advocacy efforts. And the last one is the C4UN Progress Report. So this is produced by C4UN's Information Clearinghouse. Our lead drafter Ishan did this for 2025. It provides clear, independent, and civil society-driven assessment on the progress of the Pact. It covers 32 action items in the 2025 report, but we hope to do more in the 2026 report. And it aims to serve as a strategic tool, again, to inform and mobilize civil society towards Pact implementation. So here's an example of the kind of information you can find. As per our assessment, so this one is dealing with youth delegates in the national delegations of the UN. So our assessment is that youth are now more regularly involved than earlier. And although the information is as of September 2025, we don't think there's much change in the 8 months, and we hope to see improvements in 2026. Now that I've presented the 4 different monitoring tools, I just want to take a step back and say the reason behind the different monitoring tools. As we all know, the Pact is a large document. It contains 363 sub-actions, so it is not possible for one organization to do all the monitoring work. So different organizations are doing monitoring for the actions that are most relevant to them, and also based on resource constraints and considerations. So just to give you some tips on how to navigate these different monitoring tools. So if you're looking for any information on Pact actions that are related to the SG or the UN system, please go to the UN Progress Dashboard and the GDC Implementation Dashboard. If you're looking for any information on actions by implementation is with the member states, the GGN Pact Monitoring Toolkit is the best resource. And if you're looking for any actions that call for intergovernmental action, meaning a treaty or for the SG to provide the General Assembly with any input for some negotiation processes, go to the C4UN Progress Monitoring Report. It's a bit of simplification. There are slight overlaps between the different monitoring tools, but I think these tips are almost accurate for you to help navigate these different tools. Now that I've presented the tools, I thought I'll give briefly an assessment of where the Pact implementation is. It's very hard to give a single assessment. It's a very large intergovernmental document. Based on our observation, the progress is slightly uneven across and within chapters, meaning there are some chapters which are advancing faster. For example, GDC is advancing faster. And there are other chapters like chapter 5, which deals with a lot of the reform of the multilateral system, which is progressing slightly slower. So it is important that civil society continue to engage. And as Nudara, our co-chair, said, It is important to speak in a single coherent voice. So it is important for civil society to continue to bring awareness to the pact and the commitments that have been made in the capitals, and also to raise ambition and political will. I know I'm short on time. I'll just take a minute for this slide. So this slide is looking ahead into 2026. So C4UN have been asked, we have been repeatedly asked, what are the opportunities to engage in the pact? Civil society have asked us in several occasions. So we did some of our own research to provide you that information. So if you see here in the infographic, so these are all the events related to the pact that are happening in 2026. So you can plan on your engagement and advocacy based on this information. So the image only has few key events, but the document that is there on the slide has the entire information. It's not an exhaustive list, but we have made our best efforts to capture all the pact relevant moments to use in your own advocacy and engagement. That's it from my end. There are a few C4UN pact resources over here. We'll share these slides with you so that you have all the information. That's it from my end. Thank you for your attention, and happy to answer any questions now and also later by email. Thank you. Over. Back to you, Becky.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chebelson. If there are any questions for clarification in the opening remarks, and please do so. Do you have any questions? Okay, I don't see any hands up, so we can proceed with a short break for photo. Is this the right time for it? We just have to record our Asia Futures Forum. Who will take the photo?
I can take the photo, but everybody has to switch on their camera.
Yep. Open your camera. Let's try this
Please,
one.
everybody, please open your cameras and show yourselves so we can at least have a group photo.
Some more to come, please. Yes, coming.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I think the Koreans are really very good at Selcas, huh? Congratulations. Thank you very much. Okay, now we go to the very important part of our discussion. We will start our panel discussion with our resource persons who know at the very expert level their chapters, no? So we start with the first chapter, financing for development and the SDGs. We have Zia Reman. Zia is now the Secretary General or Executive Director. How do you call yourself? Of the Asia Development Alliance. He is from Pakistan. He is the Executive Director as well of the Pakistan Development Alliance and AWAS. So let's give Zia a big hand and a big welcome for his presentation on financing for development and the SDGs. Zia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to us organizers for giving all these opportunities and wonderful conversation on Pact for the Future and the SDGs. Do you see my slide?
Yes,
Yes, yes, we see. Yes.
Okay,
Please go
great,
ahead.
great. So my presentation would not be giving you any detail about the progress on the implementation of Pact for the Future, particularly concerning the chapter 1, which is on financing for development and sustainable development agenda. In fact, it would give you more of understanding how SDGs like SDGs and Pact for the Future correlate with each other, and what are the commitments under Chapter 1 of the Pact for the Future made on financing for development, and particularly related to the SDGs. So to begin with, I would like to highlight some of the key figures for Asia that would actually build our understanding why SDGs and Pact for the Future really matter for Asia. Asia is the home of almost 59% of the world population. 67% population is between the age of 15 to 64 years, which is largely known as the most productive age. 52% of the population is urban, and most of this is comprised of the middle class of the world. Data also shows that there is a huge rural and urban divide in Asia that actually affects a lot on services and justice delivery. This is good thing that 86% of the population in Asia is literate. But on the other hand, there is a good news that most of, like 60% of the um, population in South Asian region, particularly, is young, below the age of 35, whereas there are like rapidly aging symptoms in East Asian countries like Japan, South Korea, and China. We also see a challenging situation due to the climate conflict and wars, as Anselmo has shared in his presentation. So there are lots of internal displacements in Asian countries. So this is the whole context that we have been actually now talking about. SDG progress in Asia is far behind than the overall progress in the world. As per the UN Secretary General last report, only 12 to 15% of the SDGs are on track in Asia. 30 to 35% overall SDGs and their related indicators are moderately on track, whereas 50 to 55% are regressing and they are off track. What are the major challenges and gaps while implementation of the SDGs and the other commitments that we have seen related to the SDGs? One biggest reason is that there is a disconnect between global vision and national planning. Most of the time, we struggle, and we see that many countries are still struggling to correlate with whatever is being suggested at the global forums, at various multilateral forums. Particularly in case of SDGs, we see that at national level, very few countries are progressing on SDGs. Lack of coherence between UN regional bodies and domestic ministries is the same kind of challenge that we see at the global level, at the regional level is the same challenge. There is a limited political will and shrinking civic spaces, not only civic spaces, but also financial spaces. Then the subnational level implementation is quite fragmented. We see that not in many countries the local governance are so effective. So we see that we see a lot of fragmentation in subnational level implementation. In some countries, we see that there are many state level governments who are not engaged in any kind of reporting and progress related to the SDGs. We also see that the financing is quite inadequate, and that is because of the flawed financial architecture. We also observe the weak monitoring and data systems concerning the commitments related to the SDGs. And then we have observed the lack of CSO inclusion in the regional SDG data and planning opportunities. And finally, the limited localization funding. In the chapter 1 of the Pact for the Future, there were like 12 action commitments on sustainable development and financing for development. So I just want to read those 12 action commitments because this, as we decided in the beginning that this forum, Asia Regional Forum, would be the first forum where we will be actually introducing what are the chapters, and then maybe in the later forums we will be actually assessing their implementation. So what are those 12 action commitments? The first one is accelerate SDG implementation through bold, ambitious, and transformative actions to achieve 2030 agenda. We will have to assess what are those bold and ambitious transformative actions. Um, uh, uh, we have not assessed that yet, but we should actually reflect on during our conversation. Second commitment is eradicate poverty. To place poverty elimination at the center of the sustainable development efforts. And third is end hunger and malnutrition while strengthening food security, nutrition, and sustainable agriculture systems. Uh, Fourth is close the SDG financing gap, which is a very, very important commitment while mobilizing adequate financing and reform financial systems to support SDGs. Uh, Fifth one is trade for the sustainable development to ensure multilateral trade contributes to inclusive and sustainable growth. Sixth is invest in people social cohesion, strengthen social protection, health education, and create equity. Seventh is to promote peaceful, just, and inclusive society. This is SDG 16 to advance human rights, rule of law, and accountable institutions. Eighth one is achieve gender equality, empower women and girls as a cross-cutting SDG accelerator. Ninth is strengthen climate action to integrate climate mitigation and adaptation into development pathways. Uh, 10th is protect and restore the environment to conserve biodiversity and ensure sustainable use of natural resources. 11th, promote culture and sport to recognize culture and sport as drivers of sustainable development. And finally, 12th is plan beyond 2030, enhance long-term planning and collective action to sustain SDG progress. The conversations around beyond 2030 are still have already started, and we have been witnessing that many civil society organizations are already engaged. Uh, Right now, what states should have to do to achieve Pact for the Future commitment with the biggest SDG acceleration potential? Because um, um, Asia has a great potential to progress on SDGs. However, we see that there are lesser commitments on behalf of the states. So what actions are suggested? There are certain actions that we are going to suggest here to close this SDG financing gap through finance for development and financial architecture reform, which is very, very important. And what we have witnessed in the previous year, there were like so many um, um, like expectations, a huge expectation from the FFD4, but we see that FFD4 has not delivered as we were expecting. Um, there is a dire need to build shock responsive social protection and reduce inequalities. There is a dire need to build climate and disaster resilience as a development accelerator. There is a need to fix the evidence gap, data disaggregation, and community generated monitoring. This is very, very important suggestion that we should actually engage the community and uh, uh, develop and produce citizens-led data. Digital cooperation that is right-based and pro-inclusion.
Zia, you have less than
Final
1 minute.
This is my final slide. So how civil society can contribute and monitor at regional and national level to levels um, concerning the implementation of Pact commitments regarding SDGs. Civil society actually should convert the Pact into an Asia SDG acceleration scorecard with trackable commitments. Um, our organizations can invest on that. We should follow the money, SDG budget tagging plus expenditure tracking, and that can be done both at national and a global level. We should produce shadow VNR, shadow FFD briefs as C4UN has already been doing, but it should be done at the national and regional level. We should initiate community level monitoring through citizens engagement and produce citizen generated data as an official complement to whatever the governments are producing for monitoring. And then finally, we should also use the intergovernmental windows, both UN and non-UN windows, to keep pressure and evidence flowing. So thank you very much. I will stop here and happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Zia. Please, if you have any questions, please write them in the chat so we can have a fruitful discussion later on. Okay. Again, thank you to Zia. We now go to chapter 2. It looks like we're reading the pack now. We have Mona Lisa Hasarika to speak about international peace and security. Mona Lisa is a research and strategic engagement officer of the Scrap Weapons Project of ARROW. She will not have a presentation instead will focus on the issue and discuss it. Just to give you a background on Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa is one of the UN Youth Champions for Disarmament under the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs. Youth for Disarmament program. She's an emerging voice in conventional arms control and a meaningful youth engagement, featuring most recently at the UNGA and ECOSOC joint meeting. Her areas of expertise and research focus on small arms and light weapons, especially non-industrial weapons, and their trends in illicit manufacture and trade, transnational organized crime, and the proliferation of 3D printed weapons. She has previously worked at the UN Institute for Disarmament Research in Stockholm, and she holds a degree in conflict management from Banaras Hindu University and from Northeastern Hill University in India. So she is also a research engagement officer for the removal of arms and proliferation of SOAS, University of London. Welcome, Mona Lisa, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Becky. Fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, greetings of the day. My name is Mona Lisa Hazarika, and I work as the Research and Strategic Engagement Officer at the Scrap Weapons Project, which is housed at SOAS University of London. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of the Asia Futures Forum for the invitation and opportunity to represent civil society and youth voices at this juncture in global affairs. Like Becky said, I don't have any slides to share today, but I wanted to use this opportunity to provide a very brief overview of the current state of play in terms of Chapter 2 of the Pact. Now, the adoption of the Pact marked an important political moment, as it signaled that member states recognize that today's peace and security architecture is struggling to respond to accelerating risk, whether from geopolitical fragmentations, arms racing, erosion of international law, and rapid technological disruption. This marked a shift to human-centric security with a prevention focus or a whole-of-society approach. Now, from a civil society perspective, however, the real test is not adoption, but it is implementation. At the global level, since September 2024, progress has been what I believe mixed and uneven. On the positive side, there is renewed rhetorical commitment to multilateralism, discussions on the Security Council reform gaining procedural visibility, and an increasing recognition of the need to regulate emerging technologies, including AI and additive manufacturing in military applications. Now, under Action 13C, we got the landmark global study on the impact of military spending on sustainable development called The Security We Need, published by the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs last year. Further, the call under Action 26A to consider a fourth special session on disarmament, SSOD4, has re-entered diplomatic discourse as seen from the recent statement by the delegation of Uganda at the First Committee General Assembly debate last year. However, from a civil society standpoint, implementation remains largely declaratory, as concrete timelines, accountability benchmarks, and financing pathways remain weak or undefined. In disarmament forums, we continue to see paralysis. The Conference on Disarmament, also known as CD, remains deadlocked. Nuclear risk reduction discussions remain incremental, and military spending continues to rise globally. This disconnect between ambition and reality is a core concern. And in this regard, civil society networks across regions have been instrumental in monitoring implementation gaps, in advocating for inclusive participation, and highlighting the humanitarian consequences of weapon use. Yet meaningful institutionalized participation of civil society in the follow-up process remains limited. Now, to talk about the key challenges hindering implementation, I believe there are four broader categories of obstacles. First is the political challenges. We are operating in a in the context of deep geopolitical polarization. We are seeing strategic competition among major powers, weakening consensus in multilateral forums, undermining compliance with arms control commitments, and increasing politicization in technical discussions on emerging technology. Now, trust deficits are high, and without rebuilding strategic trust, implementation risks selective application rather than universal progress. Second, we can consider the financial challenges. The global military expenditure has reached record highs, $2.7 trillion in 2024 to be precise, and funding for peace building, preventive diplomacy, disarmament verification, and development cooperation remains insufficient, leading to a quote-unquote sustainable development divide. Now, the Pact calls for investment in prevention, but prevention remains chronically underfunded because its success is rather invisible. Third, we can talk about the institutional challenges concerning the increased fragmentation of the multilateral disarmament machinery. The CD has not produced a negotiating mandate in decades. The UN Security Council continues to face legitimacy and veto-related paralysis in situations of mass atrocity. Now, meanwhile, emerging security domains such as cyber, AI, autonomous weapon, or 3D printing are governed through patchwork processes with varying levels of inclusivity and transparency. And finally, the structural challenges. Many global South states are fraught with debt distress, climate insecurity, or limited technical capacity for emerging technology governance. Now, without addressing structural economic imbalances, implementation risks reproducing inequalities rather than transforming them. And the Pact surely provides a political umbrellas, but umbrellas do not move system. People do. So from civil society perspective, and also reflecting on what Mr. Kalua said earlier in his video message, we need to be clear on three priorities. First is establishing measurable implementation benchmarks. Second, a guaranteed structure for civil society participation in the follow-up mechanism. And finally, linking different agendas of peace, of development, climate, technology governance, rather than treating them as silos. I believe the choice before us is clear. We can allow geopolitical fragmentation to hollow out the pact, or we can treat this moment as an inflection point to rebuild trust, a reinvestment in prevention, and reimagine collective security in a multipolar world. That's all from my end. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mona Lisa. Very concise, very understandable, very clear. Thank you. So I'm excited about the questions anyone might care to ask in the next few minutes. We have 10 minutes for questions and answers directed towards Anselmo. Zia and Mona Lisa. Any questions?
Not a question. And
No questions? Are you overwhelmed? I think people have been overwhelmed by sorry,
Becky,
I can't see any.
I don't have a question,
Okay.
but maybe a line
Your hand
to.
is raised. Your hand
Yeah.
is raised.
That's why. Is it the right time to make some points, or I can do it later?
Yeah, if it's short, then do it now.
Okay, so okay, there are two processes which I think which merits discussion in the larger framework is financing for development. That's in fact GIA did, and another important is World Social Summit, which many of us were engaged in last October in Doha. And the declaration has come out that something which can be brought into the fold. One more, one more important initiative by the civil society, which I'm trying to bring, is a joint appeal by the civil society to save multilateralism. The way fund cuts are happening to UN's, affecting its sustainability, particularly by the US, which is doing underfunding. 95% of the fund is not paid by US, and this civil society, the statement I just shared, civil society and individuals are calling for timely funding by the states. Despite the limitations of the UN systems, we understand that multilateralism has to exist, and probably the mighty country is using not giving the fund as a pressure tactic for the UN to follow its line and follow its dictates. That's something we are opposing as the civil society, and as a collective voice, we should continue to speak in favor of protecting multilateralism, which is necessary also to protect democracy and human rights. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pradeep. We have a question actually in the chat for you and Grant. What responses have been received to the scrap weapons program? What has surprised the team or not? Are there any organizations or prominent persons uneasy or unhelpful? If so, where and who? This is directed towards Mona Lisa. Can you respond, please? It's in the chat.
Of course. Yes, I just was writing my response to the chat, but I can also share it here. In terms of our work as a university project, that's of course affiliated to Sarasa University London. Most of our work in the past 2 years, and of course related to the summit, was with regards to the SSOD4, the Summit of the Future. We have been working closely with a number of organizations, both in Europe, as it's of course the university is based in the UK, but also organizations based in South America and Africa, if I remember correctly. I'm sharing the link. I've shared the link in the chat if you want to see the work that we did. And to answer your particular question on any organizations being uneasy or unhelpful, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer that, but based on my experience working with the project for the last 3 to 4 years, I can say one thing that as civil society, we have always been lucky enough to be surrounded by very supportive and very productive coalition of civil society actors and practitioners, which enabled us to, of course, advocate very strongly for calling states for a special session on disarmament. We organize multiple events during the Summit of the Future, both in person and online. So I would like to take that as a positive response. I'm not sure. I haven't experienced anyone who was being unhelpful or uneasy in that sense, but definitely very positive response we received from folks from academia, from civil society, but also the disarmament policy practitioners. Over to you.
Okay, thanks. Abid?
Thank you, Becky, and thank you, Becky, and it's lovely to be part of this meeting again. And looking forward to see you again sometime in person. There are actually a couple of things which are emerging, and one of them is, like in the entire Asia, authoritarianism is growing, and that's the trend across not just in Asia but globally. And I also agree with Zia's comments that citizen participation and their inclusion, especially the monitoring of the development plans and even local plans, is absolutely critical. The question I have is, there is so much fragmentation in civil society. We are unable to agree on standard tools which can help us to collate our data for advocacy. So if we want to do an effective advocacy, one of the major things is we must align, and that's question goes to Mona Lisa as well, or maybe suggestion. If the university can work on developing systems and tools and guidance which can help us to really streamline our advocacy. I've been working on this sector for many years now, and scorecard, participatory budgeting and planning, citizen charter, all of those. What is the best which civil society can work? And finally, I guess the most important part for moving forward, not just developing tools, but actually APSD can help actually to build capacity of civil society to use those tools effectively so that we can actually have a more consolidated voice for influencing decision maker and powers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Mona Lisa, please give a very short answer because we have to proceed to the other speakers. For the others who have raised their hands like Zia and Mahendra, I'm very sorry I will not give you a chance to speak now, but please write your responses or your questions in the chat and we will endeavor to answer them at the end of the forum. I hope you understand. Mona Lisa?
Yes, Becky, I believe that was a suggestion. So I don't have any answers to it, but surely happy to help, happy to hear what other civil societies are working on, since my organization works and focuses completely on arms control, non-proliferation, disarmament. I'm not plugged into the other works of other civil society from other sectors, of course. So I think it's understandable that I cannot speak on that, but happy to hear any suggestion.
Okay, thank you so much. We now proceed to the Global Digital Compact. We have as our speaker, Baslur. Baslur Rahman is a specialist in advancing digital democracy. He has an MSS in Government and Politics and a Bachelor of Laws degree, and he is the Chief Executive Officer, of the Bangladesh NGOs Network for Radio and Communication. You have the floor, Baslur.
Very good afternoon, evening from Dhaka, Bangladesh. Thank you, Madam Becky. Basically, we have been involved with the Summit of the Future and WSIS and Internet Governance Forum from the beginning of the process of the UN. And And then we started the implementation process regarding the WSIS and as well as IGF. But now I would like to share with you regarding the GDC matter according to the our Asia Futures Forum meeting mandate. So you see the GDC's mandate basically in here. There are three major areas. One is close all digital divides and deliver an inclusive digital economy. Second area is build an inclusive, open, safe, and secure digital space. Third one is strengthen international data governance and govern AI for humanity. And with there are five principles basically exist in the GDC according to the GDC mandate. Now I would like to share with you regarding the GDC so far progress in the UN headquarters, and then gradually I come with other areas. So I see September 2024 compact open for the endorsement, and as 31st December 24. There are 93 countries basically endorses, and I think by this time more country maybe endorse the process, and individual and organization level there are 395 multi-stakeholder endorse the process. Now endorsement process is going on. Secondly, very recent digital cooperation portal has been opened, and there is a 5 areas. Any entity, any stakeholder can submit the program to the digital cooperation portal. Like this, number one, closing the digital device related initiative, expand inclusion in the digital economy, foster safe digital space and human rights, for international data governance and enhance AI governance. This related project now they welcome to submit the digital cooperation portal. Third one is the GDC implementation map, and 2025 basically declared the GDC implementation map. And fourth one is the very recent UN Secretary General declared the Independent International Scientific Panel on AI. There are 40 panel a member of this Independent International Scientific Panel on AI selected all over the world. Now, I would like to share with you regarding the aligning efforts going on GDC process. First one is the Digital Technology Working Group, Digital Technology Subgroup, and Multi-Stakeholder Engagement. So you see the Digital Technology Working Group could engage additional stakeholder. Here is the community, tech community, private sector, civil society network, academia, and IGF MAG, multi-stakeholder group, and additional participation from international finance institution, youth leader, relevant international organization like this. Now they are trying to align with them. Secondly, leverage the existing channel with the multi-stakeholder network called World Summit on the Information Society Forum and Internet Governance Forum, Science and Technology Forum, IGF proposals like this, and also they are now aligned with the sister organization called OECD, Davos, World Economic Forum, Net Mundial, and much more. So this is this process is going on regarding the aligning efforts with the multi-stakeholder. Now I would like to share with you regarding the SDG 9C. 9C basically aligned with the Global Digital Compact mandate. GAI has already covered the Asia Pacific region general area. Now I would like to share only the science and technology in line with the information and communication technology called digital matter of the Asia Pacific. According to the our Asia Pacific regional report from the UN ESCAP, we are not very much happy. We are very much deadly slow. Our progress is deadly slow regarding to the other region. So we need to accelerate this matter. To achieve SDG 9 by 2030, the focus is on increasing affordable broadband, improving digital skill, and liberalizing partnership to build resilience digital infrastructure. It is a very, very important. Huge digital divide is going on, and it is increasing, not a decreasing, and as well as gender gap also significant gap remain affordable. Gender gap is huge, not a reducing, it is increasing. So this is our Asia Pacific regional situation. Now I'd like to jump to according to our mandate regarding the implementation of the GDC. What is happening? Number
Baslo,
one,
you have 2 minutes.
okay. Number one, principle are strong, implementation mechanism are very weak. National implementation readiness, lack of the government initiative. It's a huge lack of government initiative, reluctant like this. Third, mobilizing United Nations Regional Cooperation Resident Coordinator Office support for GDC implementation at the country level. And number four, uneven multi-stakeholder participation and lack of travel support for the civil society organization. Therefore, there is a strong call for institutionalizing the role of the marginalized community, youth and CSO, along with providing necessary resources, including travel support for sustained and meaningful engagement. This is my last slide. Civil society should consider engaging with monitoring and strengthening implementation of the GDC. Number one, claim a stronger role in formal follow-up process. Say we need to enter in the digital public infrastructure, digital public goods also, and as well as government process, UN process. Number two, frame implementation around measurable right-centered indicator. Third, anchor accountability in national and local condition. How we can include in this process regarding National Human Rights Commission, National Right to Information Commission in this process. Number four, pursue an engagement with ongoing digital governance mechanism, say like WSIS process, internet governance, UN AI for Good, and other national initiative. Number five, creating a national observatory. It is a very, very important from the civil society side. How we can creating a national observatory on GDC, internet governance, and WSIS action lines. Therefore, establishing a national observatory focus on global digital compact, internet governance, and WSIS action line is essential for monitoring, evaluating, and advancing national commitment. And finally, advance the endorsement process of the global digital compact GDC, turning the compact into concrete action. So endorsement process is going on, and we can still opportunity to endorse the process. Finally, in the conclusion, I'd like to say civil society engagement with the Global Digital Compact should not be episodic or symbolic. It need to be systematic, evidence informed, and coalition based. And finally, the strategy aim to anchor that engagement in measurable sense from national policy reforms to international accountability mechanism, and to ensure that the GDC promise of inclusion, human rights, and digital justice become tangible in the Asia Pacific, not just aspiration on paper. Thank you, madam, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Very, very clear. Excellent presentation. Thank you, Baslur. Now we come to the next speaker. The next speaker is Lei Santiago. Lei works with as Advocacy and Youth Engagement Officer of the Asia South Pacific Association for Basic and Adult Education, or ASBE. Lei, you have the floor.
Thanks, Ms. Becky. It's a very long name. Hello, everyone. It's Lei of ASPE, and we are a proud member of APSD. So thank you so much for the kind invitation So 2025 was marked by youth-led protests and demonstrations from Indonesia to Nepal to the Philippines to Mongolia and Timor-Leste. We've seen young people taking to the streets and mobilizing and organizing and being so done with their corrupt governments. So the first slide alone, you can already tell that the Pact for the Future section on young people is not actually being implemented because youth are voicing out their frustrations and their rage. 2025 was also marked by numerous conversations around artificial intelligence and its implications on our mental health, our human rights, our right to education, and its impacts on the climate and on security and information access. And then there's also this term called youth washing, and young people are calling it out. And this actually stemmed from youth activists within climate justice movements who are criticizing organizations and governments for publicly praising youth involvement while failing to enact real change. So, with a little over 4 years left to the 2030 agenda, young people around the world continue to navigate a very complex landscape that is being shaped by evolving labor markets, by numerous barriers to education and employment, widening inequalities, worsening climate change, genocides, and armed conflicts. But at the same time, I think this moment also brings renewed momentum because there's been increasing recognition of the immense power that young people wield. We're seeing youth representation in decision-making spaces, and that includes in the UN process, such as the Pact for the Future, which is an ambitious set of goals and commitments to make the international system more effective. It is a pledge to invest in the social and economic development of children and youth, to protect the human rights of all young people, and to strengthen the meaningful engagement of youth at various levels. And the implementation of this section is being coordinated by the UN Youth Office with member states and partners. So I'd like to touch upon the final points around strengthening meaningful youth participation in various processes and decision-making processes that actually affect young people's lives. And so ASPE and its members across the region contributed to the UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report Survey on understanding the meaningful youth and student participation in various decision-making processes. And so what was revealed in that report? And these are quite obvious, but good to still emphasize that, for instance, meaningful youth and student participation requires both political will and enabling conditions. And that also includes civic space and political freedoms, as well as media independence for this to work. It also found that youth and participation does not always translate into influence, and more participation does not always equal more inclusive participation. So these are some of the points that came out of that report, which I'm sure everybody already knows, especially those who are working with young people, such as Arrow, who is in the room as well. So based on the civil society spotlight reports in SDG4 that we are developing with our members in the region, we find that several countries in Asia and the Pacific have well-developed national youth laws and policies to support young people's education, employment, and development. But challenges remain in terms of the implementation of these policies. So for instance, in Mongolia and Nepal, there is insufficient and unsustainable funding to put these policies into practice. And while efforts over the years have opened spaces for young people, there are still instances in which youth across the region routinely face exclusion and discrimination, and the representation of young people is at times merely tokenistic, something to check in a box. And these spaces do not actually carry the voices of young people. I also had chats with my youth core team, and one found that the Pact for the Future is being implemented in a way that allows for the social and economic empowerment of young people in that particular country. But for another youth in another country, it has not reached the young people at the grassroots level. So awareness is not all there yet, that this thing exists. And another challenge is not only the lack of awareness around it, but also that it is non-binding and that there is a lack of clarity on how to implement the provisions at the local and national levels, as opposed to just the global level, and how it is directly connected to all of the other outcomes of other UN processes, and how it could possibly be linked to the post-2030 discussions that is currently underway, I think from this year to the next. And again, it is one of the many outcome documents that are coming out of these processes. So what are young people doing at the moment? We're doing youth-led action research, which is research being done and conducted by young people themselves. So our members in the regions such as Campe would do youth-led policy dialogue with their local governments to engage youth, including marginalized youth, in policy formulation. In Pakistan, they're conducting these youth dialogues and town halls to give young people a direct channel to decision makers. And another National Education Coalition member in Indonesia, they're actually engaging with youth by doing these freestyling, which is a pretty cool strategy where they just share whatever they want to share amongst other youth. And it's a good chance for decision makers as well to know what really is happening amongst the youth situation on the ground. So what have been the lessons learned, at least from us within ASPE and engaging with our young people? Again, nothing revolutionary, but so important to emphasize that sustaining youth engagement is so critical because we will inherit the earth one day. And so it must be continuous and meaningful and never tokenistic. And this must also go hand in hand with capacity building and leadership skills building, along with evidence-based advocacy. We also find that creativity, art, music, and storytelling resonate much more deeply with young people than technical language alone, so none of the boring stuff. We also want to make sure that we're putting youth at the center and who are able to advocate for their rights because they are the best at reaching out to other youth. They're the best at facilitating, of leading, and ensuring diverse representation to be able to strengthen our legitimacy and inclusion. So we want to walk the talk. We want to walk the talk. And we also want to ensure grounded youth-led monitoring and policy reviews and research so that we're equipping our young people with the capacities that they need. And so recommendations to raise awareness about the Pact for the future, so it's not just in our own bubble. You also want to be strengthening the political will and identifying what are the concrete actions, the actionable steps for us to be able to implement these Pact's provisions. And as I've been hearing over the past many forums here in Bangkok, along with the APFSD Youth Forum and the People's Forum, we want to formalize meaningful engagement and representation of civil society and young people at these various decision-making processes so that we're reflecting community needs and demands. And we want to be able to create and sustain mechanisms and an ecosystem of support so that it's an enabling environment for youth themselves to participate and to feel safe and to be able to advocate for priorities and issues that they care about the most. And I think many have also mentioned many of these recommendations, so all aligned. I think that's about it for me, Ms. Becky, and I hope I was on time and hopefully not too quickly because I get that a lot.
You are perfectly on time, exactly on time. So thank you very much, Lei. Perhaps you said it's nothing revolutionary. Perhaps we need a revolutionary one now to change the system. Okay, next we will have Anuj. Anuj is from Arrow. Anuj is going to speak about the future generations. Anuj is the Asia Pacific Resource and Research Center for Women in Arrow and a public health graduate based in Kathmandu in Nepal and currently working as the program officer for Arrow. In the last 9 years, Anuj has been engaged in various capacities within sexual, reproductive health and rights, public health, technology, and content creation. He strongly believes in feminism and equality. Prior to joining Arrow, Anuj worked as a project lead for HR-based projects in Nepal and has led a youth-based coalition of young people in Nepal. He was one of the board members of an organization that works to support women, children, and girls in reaching their full potential in life by improving their overall health status. You have the floor, Anuj.
Thank you so much, Becky, and thank you to the organizers for having me. Hello, everyone. Hello from my dark hotel room in Bangkok. I am also here for the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, and maybe we can also, maybe I can also follow Lei's lead in sharing a picture at the start. Wait, yeah. So this is a picture from the APFST Youth Forum 2026. Lei had also touched upon it. And this was a convening of 705 young people from 38 countries pre-APFST, where they came together to share their asks, recommendations on ensuring a sustainable future for all. I say this because maybe I can butcher George Orwell's quote of, who controls the past controls the future. But whoever is controlling the present will control the future as well, because we are talking about future generations here. And in the declaration on future generations, there is a recognition that whatever we do right now, the actions, the decisions that we make, everything that we do will have an multiplier effect on the next generation, or maybe the generation that will come up after hundreds of years. So we need to do something about that. And what has been done, as Lei said, nothing much, especially since Pact for the Future was also supposed to accelerate our progress towards HDG, but the summary of the Asia and the Pacific Sustainable Development Goals Progress Report from SCAP shows that we are only 14 targets are on track, and the Agenda 2030's CREEP principle was to leave no one behind. But we are far from that. Everything is in chaos right now. I guess worldwide inequalities are rising, even though there's a specific goal on reducing inequalities. And we don't have that many data in certain areas of those indicators to report back as well. So in terms of future generations, nothing much has happened, but the UN is working to have a special envoy for future generations in place. Although US does have their own envoy for this, I think they have a different name, and they are also working on creating a set of indicators to monitor the progress in this. We have also had different, conversations around AI all over. We just had them as well. I think at the AI summit in Delhi, I think last month or a couple of months back, they had a talk about making AI accessible for all, and also making it, something that can help humanity. And there are also work undergoing on going beyond GDP and maybe measuring sustainability and human well-being as well. But work is still left to be done. The challenge is everything we have discussed. As I said, whatever we do right now is going to impact the future generation. So undermining multilateralism, militarism, funding crisis. The Secretary General also talked about imminent financial collapse as well. So many things are happening right now, and things do look bleak. And states maybe are focused more on paying their debt back than focusing on the future generations or even young people. So a lot of challenges. However, things are still happening. One of the previous speakers mentioned that young people are being engaged in the advocacy spaces to make their voices heard. I think that is one step to ensure that, our decision can actually help future generations. Apart from that, Arrow has been doing some of her own work as well. I would like to talk about our, convening of young people, 82 young people from Asia and Pacific back in 2024 August, where they just came together and put forth the demands to ensure human rights for all, to ensure that, there's a sustainable future for all. And, we are using these recommendations even now in 2026. We used it for WSSD2. We used it for financing for development. We are using it for the APFSD as well. And it is also, adding to the APFSD Youth Forum call to action, which I have in my hand, which we just launched today. These documents are quite essential because they include young people's recommendations on ensuring a brighter future for all, something that can help the future generation. And other things that we have done that can help them is, we have tried to highlight innovations from across Asia Pacific as well, be it through a board game that can teach people about, their sexual and reproductive health and rights, or be it through this light, this innovative light that can light up things without the use of electricity. So I am going to highlight recommendations from the APFSA Youth Forum itself first. That's the document that we launched in the last couple of days. So guarantee meaningful and inclusive youth participation in all agenda setting, decision making at local, national, regional, and international levels. Only then we can ensure that everyone's voices are heard and we can have a sustainable future for all. And caution against regression on core gender and human rights mandates. We cannot forget about the mandates of, Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, ICPD, Convention on the Rights of the Child, and other, other mandates. We cannot forget about them. We can definitely use them as a base to ensure a sustainable future for all. And then we have already talked about how corporations are capturing everything right now, and multilateralism may not be at the best place right now. So this is one of our recommendations that, we need to prioritize long-term survival of the people, including the future generations, over short-term profit. And militarism, we need to, move away from that and go into social development and equality for all. And also, as I mentioned before, CEDAW, Beijing, ICPD, they are all bases for our sustainability related work. Also, stakeholders must ensure that young people's voices are heard. They are at the forefront of decision making as well, so that they can decide their own future as well. And the Pact also needs to be a bridge to the post 2030 era, because right now at the APFST as well, when I talk to people are confused about how the Pact is impacting SDGs, and it would be really great if, the UN could could create a bridge there. And also for future generation technologies that we have are taking away jobs. AI is creating a lot of chaos. So we must demand for sustainable, accessible, and inclusive technological developments that serve for the people and serve for the good of the future generations. And yeah, I think both the points are covered. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Anuj. We are looking forward to more interactions with you at the question and answer part. So, thank you. For the last speaker, certainly not the least, we have Transforming Global Governance and the UN80. This will be given to us by Ishan Shah. Ishan is the next generation lead fellow of the United Nations Foundations and also works with us at the C4UN. Ishan, are you there?
Yes, thank you so much, Becky. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
And great to be here in my capacity supporting C4UN with Pact for the Future implementation and sort of monitoring various intergovernmental processes across the UN system, particularly here in New York. But great to be here to give you an update on what's happening around Chapter 5, particularly on transforming global governance. And there have been several updates and progress that have happened since September 2024 when the Pact was adopted. Chapter 5 alludes to the financial contributions that member states give to the regular budget. The UN continues to encourage member states to meet their obligations in full, on time, and without conditions. I'm sure you've seen the letter the Secretary General has sent to the permanent representatives of member states here in New York to alert them to the liquidity crisis that the organization is facing and the need for member states to make sure that they're paying their dues as early as possible. In parallel, the UN system-wide human rights group is now operational at both the principal and experts level. Their strategic priorities are finalized, and this really marks an important step towards greater coherence, coordination, and financing for advancing human rights across the UN system. In September last year, in 2025, the UN convened the first biennial summit aimed at strengthening links and coordination between the UN and financial institutions. This is a progress and a marker of progress in terms of implementation of Chapter 5. At that biennial summit in 2025, they discussed the Fourth International Conference on Financing for Development, and in particular, how to take the Sevilla commitment forward to improve access to concessional financing. Last year, during the Beijing Plus 30 review, we also saw that UN Women supported the revitalization process of the Commission on the Status of Women. That process is ongoing, but the first resolution was adopted last year, and the first multi-stakeholder interactive hearing was held a couple of weeks ago, an outcome of that revitalization process to strengthen the engagement of civil society in the Commission's work. Security Council reform continues. The conversations around the intergovernmental negotiations process are ongoing. Last week, we saw the most recent meeting being held. That meeting focused on the categories of membership. And while positions remain diverse, the process remains active and engagement from a large majority of the membership continues there. And as institutional developments occur with regards to Chapter 5, and particularly on transforming global governance, one of the main areas of where governance will be transformed this year is the process of selecting the next Secretary General. And that is a process that is intended to be transparent, inclusive, and merit-based. And it looks to the future of the UN. It looks to the leadership that the UN will hold for the next decade, essentially, taking us to 2030 and beyond. A lot of what's going on around the Secretary General selection process itself, so talking about the substantive process, was decided in the process of the revitalization of the General Assembly last year. And a resolution was adopted in September, which pointed to various aspects of how the process would be run, including the call for an open letter to be circulated by the President of the General Assembly and the President of the Security Council to call for nominations. That letter was circulated in November of 2025. And since then, we've received a couple of nominations there. But in terms of the process as a whole, that resolution has made some significant strides in terms of transparency and inclusivity. For example, for the first time, there is language in that resolution which shifts the pronouns of the rules and procedures of the General Assembly, which stick to he, him pronouns, and now are inclusive of women, in the hopes that there will be a woman Secretary General elected. So there is a very technical element there that's made progress on. The text itself, it doesn't mandate that the next Secretary General has to be a woman, but it strongly encourages member states to nominate women candidates, and that is building off the language that we've seen in the Pact for the Future in Chapter 5 there. And there is also strengthened language on financial transparency of candidates to make sure that they're disclosing their financial commitments, and the gains that we made back in 2016, 2015 in that Secretary General selection process and that GA revitalization process have been sustained, and the line has been held there. And really congratulations there to the co-facilitators, Romania and South Africa, for holding the line. The dynamic in the negotiations of the GA revitalization are very much the P5 against the rest of the membership there. And so it's a very interesting dynamic to see, but good to see that momentum has been sustained there. To date, as I mentioned, 2 candidates have been formally nominated for the SG position. The term for that position will begin on January 1st, 2027. Michelle Bachelet, the former president of Chile and former UN Commissioner for Human Rights, and also former executive director of UN Women, has been nominated by Chile, Mexico, and Brazil. And Rafael Grossi, the director general of the International Atomic Energy Agency, has been nominated by Argentina. What's important to note here is that for the first time in history of the SG selection process, a candidate has been nominated by a group of member states. So Michelle Bachelet has been nominated by Chile, Mexico, and Brazil, which signals strong regional support for her candidacy. And also, this is the first time that this has happened where it's been a group of member states supporting a specific candidate initially at this point in time. So this has never happened before. Looking ahead, the interactive dialogues with all the candidates, which will be an important space for member states to hear directly from those seeking this office, as well as an opportunity for them to ask questions. These dialogues are scheduled to take place the week of 20th of April here in New York. These will be webcasts on UN Web TV, so open to all to watch and engage with. Candidates will present their vision statements and respond to questions from member states. The modalities for civil society engagement are yet to be confirmed. I'm unsure, or it's unclear if civil society will have space in those dialogues to to ask questions of the candidates, or whether a separate dialogue will be convened with civil society. There is provisional discussions about another hearing with candidates being held with civil society in Geneva, but more details to follow on that in the coming weeks and months, which we're happy to circulate to C4UN to partners here. And finally, allow me to update you on the 3 work streams under the UN80 initiative. Progress continues across all 3 work streams, with efforts focused on strengthening institutional effectiveness, enhancing system-wide coherence, and ensuring the UN remains responsive, relevant, and results-oriented, and fit for purpose as we approach the 81st session of the General Assembly. On work stream 1, which is on efficiencies, the 5th Committee resumed its deliberations yesterday on financial matters. The Financial Controller of the UN is already working on the 2027 budget proposal. And at the same time, the Advisory Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Questions, the ACABQ, has also been meeting in parallel. We should expect further updates on the 2027 budget in the coming months. And again, as you've all seen, the Secretary General has circulated the letter to permanent representatives about the liquidity crisis. On workstream 2, the informal ad hoc working group, which is being co-chaired by Jamaica and New Zealand, today they will release the revised version of the draft resolution on mandates review. That resolution is structured into 3 segments: mandate creation, mandate implementation, and mandate review. And tomorrow, C4UN, in partnership with the 2 co-chairs, are holding a civil society consultation to allow civil society the opportunity to directly provide sort of their recommendations on language that they think should be included in the revised draft resolution. So encouraging colleagues to join that tomorrow. It's a hybrid event, so for those in person here in New York, please do join. But otherwise, feel free to join in line. We encourage you to take the floor. The co-chairs will be present at that meeting, and there will also be an opportunity to provide written inputs to directly inform the deliberations of that resolution there. The negotiations of this resolution are expected to conclude on the 31st of March. There is language in the resolution now that this informal working group will transition into a formal working group as of 1st of April. So those conversations on mandates review will continue. Again, to reiterate, this is not about looking at the previous mandates that have been agreed by member states. It's not about opening up those mandates or renegotiating those mandates. It's about looking ahead into the future. What are the criteria that member states need to take into consideration and account when creating new mandates? For example, duplication, overlap, substantive resourcing, etc. And then work stream 3, which is on structural realignment and programs across the UN system. In particular, here looking at the 3 key mergers of UNOPS, UNDP, of the UN's training institutes, and of UN Women and UNFPA. Lots to update on this work stream. I would like to flag in particular that on Friday, the General Assembly will convene for an informal briefing with Tom Fletcher, who is the US Chief of Humanitarian Affairs. He will provide an update on the humanitarian cluster of that work. These are monthly updates that are being convened by EOSG and the President of the General Assembly. So look out for that on Friday morning, New York time. And on the mergers in particular, the executive boards of UNDP, UNOPS, and UNFPA, as well as UN Women, have convened over the past couple of weeks. In those meetings, the mergers have been discussed, and a lot of member states requesting more information and evidence-based analysis on the proposed merger assessments before they take decisions. Member states are very clear that the decision on mergers will be taken by the executive boards, by the member states. There is little engagement for civil society in these merger processes, but strong encouragement for you to continue to raise your voices around these different proposals, particularly on Workstream 3, to convene, to give recommendations directly to member states, to the SG's office. And of course, as CPUN, we will support in facilitating those spaces so that civil society voices can be fed into the process. The UN80 conversation is one that will continue, hopefully something inherited by the next Secretary General. And I think that we need to make sure that as civil society, we're on top of these conversations, that we're continuing to feed in, and that importantly, that these are not top-down conversations, but that, all of us here today who have the experience of working with communities on the ground, who will be directly impacted by the UN80 initiative, are the ones who are leading on the evidence and on the narrative there from the bottom up. That's a very brief overview update from me, but happy to answer questions on more specific elements.
Thank you very much, Ishan. Very informative, but a lot to chew on. So for everybody, the floor is now open for questions. We have 7 minutes until the end of our discussion. So we have 5 minutes for questions and answers. Are there any nagging questions for anyone? Are you overwhelmed? Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat. Okay. Only for Ishan to share his talks. Okay. This is recorded, so okay. Thank you very much. Okay,
Becky,
since
there's a
yes.
hand raised.
Okay, Pierre. Pierre,
Yeah.
I see your hand now. Please speak.
Yes, hello.
The floor.
Thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
It will be very short. I have been posting in the chat some invitations to get connected to some social forum processes. So maybe some people here know about the World Social Forum process. So there is the global WSF, which is a family of processes. The main process, most known, is the WSF itself, with an upcoming event in Benin, in Cotonou, in August. And there are other processes such as the Asia Pacific Social Forum, the West Africa Social Forum, and the WSF Intersection Social Forum, each having a facilitating committee and trying to implement those processes as an intercommunication process held in an open space, abiding by the principle of World Social Forum. So if you are interested in connecting in personal capacity or in the name of an organization in those processes, you may use some links that I have shared. I will also, and basically you have the Asia Pacific
Social forum
where there is a form which you can use. So this is all. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, and I think there is a connection to be strengthened and nurtured between social forum processes and processes like this one in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Zia?
Yeah, thank you, Becky. I don't have any question, but just wanted to share that the international community, particularly the Canada and UK, they are initiating a process for building new coalitions on international development cooperation. One such conference is going to be organized in London in May. And one is already announced by OECD in Paris, and probably the Canadian one would come later. So this may be, as Anselmo has already shared, that we should also try to engage ourselves in non-UN multilateral processes on financing for development. So these may be some good opportunities. But at the same time, I raise also one question to all of you. Maybe some people may be able to respond to it. We see that every now and then these multilateral processes are initiated by the global community, particularly the Western countries who have the purse, who have the money, who have the resources. So they initiate the process and they then engage the civil society, and then they also engage various stakeholders and initiate a process and then announce something and then forget. So should we be continuously, making ourselves fooled by them, or should we be actually connecting and leading from the bottom as citizens to initiate any process and to push them to listen to us, what we actually want, and how we actually initiate such kind of process. So can you just any one of you may be able to respond to this kind of thought? Thank you.
Okay. I think our role, Zia, is to facilitate the voices from communities and below, no? So all of us are working either in national or regional or sub-regional platforms, and we are the ones who are connected to the global, and having this kind of interaction, especially when tackling issues relating to our future and all those things that are being negotiated and institutional changes being made at the UN, and for which we feel so disconnected. I think this is the connection that we have to establish. Exactly this kinds of forum will help us facilitate our own participation and our own inputs, because as Ishan has said, a lot of things have been made transparent because of our pushes. You know, we have made a lot of headways in terms of making transparent processes possible. So these probably are short, a band-aid or whatever, but at the same time, it opens up a lot of opportunities. So we are 1 minute away from time. So I'd like to thank everybody. I cannot, in my mind, understand how I'm going to summarize everything that has happened because of the very important inputs that have been shared by the discussants. So I'd like to just give a vote of thanks to everybody who has participated in this discussion. This will be available by recording, and we will upload them in YouTube. So please await the release of our efforts being broadcast all over the world. And let's work on the next. This is just the opening, because we will have more discussions on each of the chapters in the next few months, starting March until May, and then for which we will be submitting to the Global Futures Forum what the Asia Futures Forum has reached, no? In terms of audience, in terms of inputs, in terms of community voices. So I'd like, in conclusion, to give ourselves a round of applause and thanks to everybody, especially the staff of C4UN, Jebelson, for doing a very good coordination and preparation, and the speakers who have cooperated so well and has given have given their valuable inputs. For Ishan, for waking up very early, because he's the only person in New York now that is suffering from this hour. Anyway, thank you very much, and good night from the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
See you
Thank you,
around.
everyone.
See you around.